If you are into the co-op shooter scene, you know the drill. Grow a mission, drop in, and try to survive. But Far Far West takes that loop and throws it into a blender with robots, magic, and a supernatural frontier. It's a very unique take on the hero shooter meets the roguelike genre. You are stepping into the boots of a robotic bounty hunter, and while the cel-shaded visuals definitely give off those gritty Borderlands vibes, the gameplay is its own beast entirely. It feels like a fresh, supernatural western, and it's honestly mind-blowing to think that this whole world was built by a team of only 8 people. The loop is simple and common, but still addictive. You grab a contract, hop on your mechanical horse, and ride across the desert. Now, it's not just about mindless shooting. You're managing objectives, like stabilizing pressure valves on a massive drill while skeletons swarm your position, or launching nukes. It's chaotic and I love it. Combat feels very smooth. We start with a revolver and some kind of rifle, but also with some magic that can be used on cooldown with no remorse. The transition between weapons and movement is very fluid. On the other side, there are power-ups, called jokers, which will give you an advantage in exchange for taking something from you. For example, double and triple jump with less gravity, 30% bonus speed with no horse, and there are some interesting ones merely cosmetic, like one that makes you make duck noises while walking, or convert enemies into walking pigs. But this is not all, there is loot through the entire map. For example, there is a pickaxe conveniently placed next to some gold ores. There are collectibles, and there are side quests that will allow you to unlock or develop further weaponry. I like the details the devs have with certain characteristics, because, for example, it has some funny animations. Like if you are at full ammo capacity and try to reload, the character will inspect the chambers to verify them. The most important part of each mission is the boss fight. After completing some tasks, you just go to a market location, activate the boss, and fight. In my first scenario, I fought the cryptic vulture, which was probably the hardest boss I've encountered so far. You have to be constantly dodging green energy blasts and tornadoes while trying to manage your ammo. Most boss fights are fun because they require you to learn their patterns and be active through the entire scenario. However, some feel like a kindergarten walk. For example, there is one that's an enchanted house and the only thing it does is rotate slowly while signaling big spokes to attack. Only to release a red ghost that dies in a few shots, and with that, the boss dies. After defeating the bosses, all that's left is to leave the place, and by going back to the same place we went in, a small count will start and you will have to survive before being able to extract. After finishing a mission, there's a hub where we can go to customize our character, socialize with others, and prepare ourselves for the next mission. At the same time, we can level up our character or use gain resources to increase stats like carried ammo, health, or speed, which eventually adds up to be very useful. There are two aspects to take into account in terms of difficulty. First is the difficulty itself. There are several modes of each mission, easy and normal by default, with the rest unlocked as we progress to the game. No big deal with this, bigger risks, bigger rewards. Second, play solo or co-op. Playing solo is fun, allows you to customize your own runs and do whatever you want, however you want, without having to share much with anyone else, and you can also pause in the middle of a mission. However, a solo player will always take more doing every aspect of the game, and sadly, there is not really much advantage to playing the game solo rather than the challenge it provides. But hey, if you're a risk of friend 2 enjoyer and like to do your own runs, then it's fine. Meanwhile, in co-op, a group of 4 can cover every single main and extra objective, do side quests, localize collectibles, and blueprints faster, which in the end is much more favorable. And since the communications is the key, there is an inbuilt proximity chat to help those who don't have other forms of communication. Sound-wise, the game is just music for my ears. Even when you are in the middle of a chaotic gunfight against dozens of entities at once, the audio mix stays clean. It doesn't feel overwhelming or muddy, and the soundtrack keeps the western vibe alive without being distracting. When it comes to the story, it's pretty light right now. While there are plenty of NPCs to chat with in the hub, there isn't a deep narrative campaign per se. The devs actually decided to cut back on the lore for now to focus on other things, but they have mentioned plans for cinematics in the future. Far is a game that requires you to be in constant movement. If you stop 1 second, you may get hit. While doing all of this, I didn't feel any blur or motion sickness. Everything just happens up mostly. There wasn't a single moment where I felt the stutter, lag, because I was on solo mode mainly, so there's supposed to be any, or any freezing at all, so the game ran smoothly through entire sessions. Now, one thing that drives me are achievements. So far, the game will be released with no achievements on Steam. There seems to be no plans to add them till 1.0, which could mean 1 year after early access. At least I hope they build some kind of in-game achievements that eventually translates into dragging them to Steam. Honestly, for a game made by 8 people, the gameplay is already solid enough to stand on its own while we wait for extra layers of development. It's rare to see an indie title like this run this smoothly from day one, so if I had to put a number on it right now, I'm giving Far West a solid 8 out of 10. And now I will leave you with some gameplay so you guys can see what I'm talking about. I hope you really enjoyed this, so follow if you want more.